This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
What's going on, spectators, and welcome back for another episode of Spectales. I'm your host, Jake. He's your host, Jesus, and together we are the Doers of Dallas. Isn't that right, Jesus?
Yes, freshly off of the doing, all of the doing. There was so much time for activities, and we had so many activities that we filled. Dude, it was crazy. This is a crazy weekend.
That's right, and this is somewhat of a special edition of this episode, Jesus, because this is sort of a recap. We're just coming back from our first con ever, both in person, both in media passes, all of it. Like, this was the first kind of many's, and this is sort of a recap. Also, we got some live submitted Grail tales, which we've never had before on this show. And I don't know. There's a lot of special things going on, but I want to first say, if this is your first time joining us for Spectales, thank you very much for giving us a listen. Spectales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what is your Grail tale? Each week, we explore news stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
And I have this feeling, Jesus, that there are all these new ears listening in this week, all these new ear holes that our audio voices are traveling into, as awkward as that may sound.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, but it's true nonetheless. Right? We talked to a bunch of people this week. We got out there, we shook hands, or what is it? Shook babies and kissed hands. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, we shook a lot of babies. Kissed a lot of hands.
I was so surprised how many babies were up for being shaken. I think they're going to be 007s in the future, shaking out stairs, and they're going to wonder why. And it's because we shook them in Dallas. So yeah, there should, not that there should, but we believe that we met a lot of good people out there, and they passed on the word of the Grail tales.
Yes, and it was incredible. I'm still feeling a little bit exhausted out of it. It was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of like just into Dallas, out of Dallas, very fast. I got to meet you for the first time, and everybody, like, I've been getting asked, I'm sure you've been getting asked, how was it? What was it like meeting him after so many years of knowing each other? And I swear to God, like I told my wife, like I told everybody who's asked me, I was like, it was like nothing at all. I mean, like, it was so like fluid and natural, and it was like, well, we've been talking to each other for so long over this show. Like, I like it was like we'd known each other for forever, and being in the same room was natural. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, it's just a friend. And I think that actually answers some questions for me as far as, like, can friendships be, made online and grown, and can they be the same as in-person ones? And in reality, yeah, they really can, because like you said, we didn't skip a beat. We kept cutting up, we kept laughing, we kept improvising and enjoying the show. And there was just like enjoying the show with the buddy, which that's exactly what it was. So,
It actually reminds me a lot of the movie You've Got Mail. Have you seen that with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan?
Yeah. We went to the mattresses.
Yeah, exactly. To the mattresses, The Godfather. So it was a fun weekend, and in this episode, we're of course going to do our 3 regular segments of recent pickups, the Grail Tales segment, and our speculation segment to end everything. But I think we should talk real briefly, at least, about the con overall. We went to Dallas FanFest 2023, and this was again, multiple firsts. Not only did we meet each other for the very first time, like in person, and this was our first at a show for Spectales, but also this was my first con. Like, I've been to conventions, but I should say I've been to like little mini cons and things like that. I've been to, very minor stuff in Nebraska. Everything's minor in Nebraska, but I've never been to a con that attracted thousands upon thousands of people like this. Cosplay was very new to me. I've of course seen photos because it's on, the internet exists, but I've not seen it in person, especially not at this level. Celebrities being there, and I know that this is not San Diego Comic-Con or New York or whatever, so the celebrities are certainly not quite at the level you would find there, but still celebrities drawing a bunch of people in. And the panels, all of it was a new trip for me, and it was quite cool. If you're a listener out there and you've been to a lot of cons, you're thinking, yeah, this isn't news, Jake. Well, you know what? We're not breaking news here. This is just me recounting the fact that I was quite impressed and thoroughly enjoyed myself at my first con.
Yeah, and I'm that guy saying it's just a con, Jake. No, I'm just joking. But I have been to a ton. I was trying to see how many or count how many, and I just lost count of how many I've been to. But that doesn't take away from how cool it is. Like, you see new things and different things every time you go. You go into different circumstances. Like last time I went with my family. This time I get to go with my friend. You see different things, like, and it's just cool. It's just cool. You see new cosplays. One of the cosplays that we saw, which was pretty dope, we took a picture as soon as we got there, was the Hulkbuster, and it was like 8 or 9 foot Hulkbuster, which the guy took apparently 3 years to make. And you get that kind of stuff, right? You get very interesting, very new. Oh, and we're also excited because there's a new one that he's going to be doing, which is the Punisher War Machine.
Yes.
And he said it should be ready for next June's convention in Dallas, which we might be there.
Yeah. I hope we're somewhere at some point as far as going to another con. This was not a one and done. I think this was just the tip of the iceberg, right? No, something.
No, tipping your toes into the cold water of an iceberg, I think is.
Yeah, exactly. We were just tipping our toes into the iceberg water on this one, and it's about to get very icy. If you're new to the show, yes, the sayings are all fake or wrong or whatever. We make up as we go. And you know what? If we're making it up, Jesus, it's not wrong, right? How can it be so right if it's so wrong?
First appearance.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. We've got, I wish I could say that, well, we haven't officially gone into the first segment yet. Let's do a real once over recap though, as far as this, for this con real quick, so that, and we're going to keep talking about it throughout, but this con, we did something, we went out into the con with goals in mind. We did not get them all done. We didn't achieve everything, but again, we set our ambitions really, really high, and the con provides, right? It allowed us to do a lot of things and learn a lot of cool stuff. But one of our goals was to go get Grail Tales literally live on the con floor. And we did manage to do that, and we're going to get to that. We've got 2 very fun ones to share, and that'll come up in a moment. But Jesus, how did you feel about hearing these? And don't spoil it for the listeners, but I want to know your reaction to hearing a Grail Tale live in person, not just digitally.
Well, it was, and I've been thinking about this because it was really interesting and really cool and different. Usually when we'll have a guest on, they kind of know the gist. These guests didn't kind of know what it was. We had to explain what we think is a Grail Tale, or our description or definition of a Grail Tale. We actually had some, materials or marketing materials that tell you what a Grail Tale is in a definition form. That's fun, that we like to do. So for them to think on the fly and to know what it is or what they have and the journeys that they got or the journeys that it took to get them, I thought was really cool, because I just think it cements the fact that everybody really has a Grail Tale, right? Like one way or another, you have a Grail Tale. At least if you're a comic book collector or you're into comics, you have a Grail Tale. Even there was a guy that was like, I don't collect, I just read. And he's like, but man, one of them, and I think I took a picture, I sent it to you, Jake. One of them was like, I couldn't find this one to fill the run, but I finally found it deep in a dollar bin. And so that was his grail, right? Even though it wasn't, to collect, it was just to read and to finish his.
But the finish to run, yeah. Which is, yeah, that I think was the cool part is, again, not that any of these individuals were, they didn't have these major grail tales or major grail books, but they were just. It was the same people you see at your LCSs, but at a con, it's just bringing more of those type of individuals together, and that's the cool part, right? Like that's part of why we started the show, and it was to me. I think you had said something almost right after we had done one of these Grail Tales live in person. Was you were like, man, the look in his eyes when he was talking about the book, right? That look, and it was like. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like when you're in front of somebody, when they're talking about their grail and you see their eyes light up, I don't know if there's something, that the computer takes away, the web camera doesn't quite capture the glitter in somebody's eyes, the glint, the magic that's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. So we got to see how the sausage is made when it comes to these Grail Tales.
Yeah, I like to say that. No, I agree that's really good, and it's funny because one of the guys you're talking about, at least, just so y'all know too, I had my hat on the entire time, which is the Astros hat in Dallas, in the middle of a championship series for all the marbles, and just so y'all know, this is being recorded after the Astros loss, and guess what? I'm still wearing an Astros hat because win, lose, or draw, they're still my team. I'm still happy for what they did, but. This gentleman was a Rangers fan, and we were giving each other crap, friendly competition, all that jazz. But then he started talking about his Grail tale, and the lights in his eyes changed from, that friendly competition about sports to this is my passion, this is what I love, this is why I do what I do. And it was just really cool to see in person, man.
Absolutely. And so on that note, I think we're good to really start rolling into this episode. It is going to be chock full of other thoughts and things about the con. And of course, if you go to our social media, we've got kind of photo picture recaps. I think those are going out. So there's a little bit of a longer reel you're going to be able to find on our Instagram. And I think that's going out. I hope it's going out the same day as this episode. So Wednesday, October 25th, I believe is when that's all going to drop. But we're going to have other videos and tons of fun stuff to recap that con. We've posted more photos in the last 5 days than we ever have in a 5-day period. I don't know. That doesn't sound that impressive, but it's impressive for us, folks. So, but let's get right into our first segment.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickup segment where we're going to talk about something we recently acquired, read, or picked up, all of the above. Hey, Zeus, you traditionally go first, so what do you got?
For recent pickups, I have 2 of them, and they are actually, what is it, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something like that, right?
Is that a book?
Sure. But it's just there's a connecting thread, and that connecting thread is the last name Sanchez. So first, I'm gonna start with this really cool little Amazing Spider-Man light up spider signal, which is this really cool small 3-inch die-cast metal replica of Spider-Man's signal belt, fastened to a display stand that projects his emblem up to 5 feet. The reason why this is really cool is because it also has a full color mini book highlighting Spider-Man's array of gadgets. And that little mini book was written by guest of the show and guest co-host of the show, Guido Sanchez, the Scroll Takeover.
If you're a regular listener of the show, you'll recognize from the Scroll Takeover that happened over the summer when we had some guest hosts come in while Jesus and I were out. Guido was one of them, and one of our friends is a published. I mean, we have friends of the show who are published. I mean, but in this particular case, Guido is a great friend we've known for, I don't know, a couple years now. I'm not entirely. It's been long enough that it. But the cool thing is he's published. He's a published man, right? Like that's
Yeah. Yes. So and it's Spider-Man, right? Like this, it's canon. It's Marvel on it. So I sent this to my wife when I found out about it. Told her to order me one because I wanted it. She thought it was for the kids, so she ordered two, well, for the boys, and I didn't have one, so I said order another one for me because I'm a Spider-Man fan. I like Spider-Man, and this little light is pretty cool actually too. So if you want one of these, you want to support friends of the show as well, it's $14.95 on Amazon, and it'll get there in like 2 or 3 days. So really cool. That's I just got this. This is my recent pickup number one, the Sanchez number one, and then Sanchez number two. Is it? I have here in my hand this awesome book that I picked up from Dallas Comic-Con from guest of the show, friend of the show, really good friend of the show, artist David Sanchez.
No relation to Guido.
No relation to Guido, but Sanchez nonetheless. World Tree number one, Bad Hombres and Brad Hombres variant, and also a Wicked Comic-Con exclusive. But he's an artist, so he has his comps. This is World Tree number one. It's kind of like an homage to The Matrix, and it has the main villain / antagonist on the cover, which is a spoiler. But they're already on issue 6, I think. And it's also signed by him in red marker, which really pops.
That signature choice was, everything about it, the placement, the color he chose for that cover.
Yeah.
I was there when he did that, and I was smitten when I saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty dope, man. I'm really excited. I mentioned World Tree. If you go to our Patreon on even public, so if you're not a Patreon, you can still go onto our Patreon and look at some public postings. And I publicly posted about World Tree about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago when I started reading it. And man, I did say it's one of those, it's a tough read, right? Like it's a tough read because it's very, I don't know how to explain. It's not necessarily gore, but it's just violent. It's just very violent and very grounded in somewhat reality. There's obviously fiction and stuff like that. But after I read the first, I think 3 issues, I had to take a break. I was like, man, I got to take a break. I have all the issues, right? Like I couldn't keep going, but I'm like, I'm gonna take a break and do something light because it's just so heavy, right? And it's our whale, James Tinian's World Tree. But it's a really cool cover. That's my second recent pickup from Dallas Comic-Con. A exclusive, a variant of World Tree, a book that I'm still enjoying it, even though it's dark and stuff. But signed by David, so really cool pickup.
Very cool. So I gotta say, you're really bringing it here with these pickups because both friends of the show, both guests of the show, both Sanchez's. I'm not entirely sure how you could get any better of a recent pickup, and it involved the con. Both your pickup involved the con that we were at because you got it from him directly. So, because of that, you have earned every bit of 3 tater tots. No, that's a 5 tater tot day for you. That is a 5 tater. I've come back from Dallas a new man. Jesus gets 5 tater tots.
You realize how big I am. And...
so that's a 5 tater tot for you, Jesus. Let's go ahead and jump into mine. I am gonna start. I have two, and the first one I'm gonna go with is this one right here. Now, Jesus,
nice.
You're gonna know this one. There's a fun story behind it, and I'm talking about Infinite Crisis number 3, and this is the sketch cover variant.
Yeah, first, Jamie Reyes.
First, Jaime Reyes.
Jaime Reyes, yeah.
So the reason or how I got this, why there's a fun story. I haven't been able to talk about it on the show because we haven't really recorded since. I don't believe. I don't know. The weekend before the Dallas Con, I was visited here in Nebraska by a very good friend of the show, previous guest of the show, Paul Cook. Paul came to town and we got to spend the weekend. I literally took him to every single comic shop we had to offer, and which is like 5 total. It's Nebraska, folks. Leave me alone. I do what I can. But so Paul came to town and we went to, I mean, seriously, we did all the comic shops. We went out. I took him to some of the best restaurants I knew, got him a steak literally as big as his head. Actually, it was prime rib. We got prime rib and we got the smallest cuts of prime rib on the menu because they're known to be very large anyway. And the server came out and was like, these are the biggest cuts of this cut of meat I've ever seen. Like they gave us, we ordered the smallest. They basically gave us the largest. Paul, we each ate like half a steak. We could have split. We could have split it. Anyway, but one of the things that Paul did when I got here was he gifted me Infinite Crisis #3. Not only that, he gifted 2 of these because he knew I was going to be seeing Jesus in Dallas, and he made sure that 2 of these books were one for me, one for Jesus. I, of course, made sure that Jesus got the one with all the spine ticks and things like that. But
yeah, but you forgot and you weren't paying attention, and you gave me the one with the blue letters, which is a second printing, and it's more scarce.
Did I really?
So thank you for yeah.
Did I really?
No.
Okay. I was like, I guess I didn't look that closely. Man, that's a good one though. Paul was like, I didn't know I gave him that one either. So funny story behind the book though, because Paul got the 2 copies of the book out, and I think he could see that, and it's a DC book. And you go ahead, everybody out there, you can laugh at me. It's a DC book. And he could see, I was like, oh man, that's really cool. Thank you. You know, as you say to somebody who gives you a gift. And Paul looked at me and he was like, you don't know what this is. And he was like, Jesus is going to be excited about this. Jesus will know what it is. Which was hilarious because, yeah, the second I showed Jesus the book, he was like, oh, let's go. It's like, first Jaime Reyes. He knew that it was the more rare version copy of the book. Jesus knew instantly what it was. So Paul, your assumption was proved correct, and I appreciate Paul educating me on the first Jaime Reyes. Either way, it's such a cool moment. The whole weekend was incredible. It was great to have Paul here. This has been a fun journey for me, meeting people through Instagram, starting with Instagram, and then through this podcast. And slowly but surely, I'm meeting more and more people that I want. Comics have led me to meet online, but now I'm meeting them in person. And I think that's just a really cool story. We met David Sanchez at the event. Yep. Right? A guest of the show. That was my first time meeting him. Just really, really cool for all of this time and effort in comics and collecting and things like that to turn into these friendships that are now like physically real. I haven't been catfished. I thought for sure, Jesus, you had been catfishing me, and I was going to get there and you were going to end up being some serial killer of some kind. Real long game on your end, but turned out, but good news. Yeah. I'm still alive. Maybe the game is still afoot. I don't know. Yeah. So, Paul, thank you so much for that. Everybody out there should absolutely go and follow Paul's YouTube account. He does fun videos. He does a lot. He gets a lot of people involved. He is really good with the community, the collecting community. You can find him at Sector 2815 on YouTube and on Instagram if you want to follow him there. He's such a great person. My other book that I'd like to talk about here real quick. And this is just something that I read that I have to talk about. I can't not bring it up. It just dropped last week before we went to Dallas, and that is Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees by Patrick Horvath. And this book is, sometimes there's a book that's made that's just really right up your alley. And this one is right up mine. So it's actually it's been doing really well, gaining a lot of traction. I'm seeing a lot of people online that are reading this. So maybe I don't have to alert anybody. If you are unfamiliar with it is an IDW book. It came out on October 19th, I believe was the drop date on that. And it looks like almost like a children's book, right? The artwork is very reminiscent of like Little Bear. And the protagonist is a bear who lives in a small town. And it is an owner of the local hardware store. It seems like this bear is just a very valued member of the community. But this bear has a secret. And that is that the bear is a psychotic serial killer. I mean, like, to a crazy extent. You get to witness a murder in this book, and it is, oh my God, it is disgustingly beautiful. And then that very same bear, who, literally can just so easily murder an individual, drain them of all their blood. Like it's gorgeous. And then transition to having a glass of wine with friends. Like it's just, it's
like,
yeah.
What's his name? Hannibal Lecter.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of that feel, in it, but the twist at the end, Jesus, I know I mentioned this to you, you may think I just gave away the book. I gave you like the first 10 damn pages. I did not give anything away. The twist, the turn at the end of the book is like, oh my God, I need to read the second one now. It's that good. For me anyway, for me personally. So I can't recommend it enough.
Well, here's a couple things. One, since you told me about it, I've been nonstop wanting to go pick it up. I'm finally going to get a chance to go to the LCS tomorrow to get it. Hopefully they have one. If not, I'm going to be driving around until I find one.
Yeah.
Two, online, I'm seeing a ton of buzz for this book because of everything you just said. And also, I guess the author or the writer and maybe the publisher has seen all this buzz and they're capitalizing on it, and they show the cover of the second issue, which doesn't come out until I think mid-November, and it's a pretty interesting cover. Have you seen it?
I don't know that I have. There is one that is very. Are you referring to one of these two?
Nope.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it then.
There's a variant. I'll just let you guys look it up. I mean, again, it's making the rounds on at least.
I don't know that I've seen it then.
All right, I'll send it to you because it's pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's one of those things where it's like bittersweet because I should have read it already, but I haven't. So now I'm real giddy to read it. So yeah, that's a really cool pickup. Thank you for putting me onto it, and now I have to go find it.
Yes. Oh yeah. It to me this needs to be on a read now, ask questions later list. And it just came out last week. From the drop of this episode, it'll be a week old. It should still be on shelves. And I do think that IDW is very well aware of the heat warming up on this.
IDW, okay.
Yep, and to me it's interesting because let's be honest, what was the last IDW series that we talked about?
I don't know which one. Remind me.
Last Ronin, maybe?
No, wasn't there more? There's been a couple other ones. Man.
Have we? I don't mean it as an insult. I genuinely don't remember the last IDW book that we, came on here and highly recommended. And not to say that there aren't good ones. There's only so much we can cover on this.
Just sent it to you, Jake. Check it out. Tell me what you think.
The cover. Let's take a look at this bad boy. Oh, issue 2. Okay. Ooh, that's kind of morbid, but also.
Exactly.
Is it bad that it makes me hungry? Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. This series has this strange feeling that reminds me. It's reminiscent of when Stray Dogs was released. It's reminiscent, like the heat that it's generating. It's reminiscent of when Something is Killing the Children really started picking up heat, right? Like, it is not only a good read, it is also feeling like it might start capturing some attention in the collector's realm, right?
Yeah, yes. And the thing about it too is, like, I mean, the artwork is good for what it is, right? Like, it's that nostalgia, that kid cartoon, but with like super adult extreme theme. So the juxtaposition is kind of what makes it even more intriguing and more interesting.
Which is
see how far that can be pushed.
Like,
right?
that Stray Dogs feeling, right? Stray Dogs had that nostalgic artwork as well. This very different from that in terms of the style of artwork, but I guess you would say, like, the math equation here, it's the same math, right? Nostalgia plus rated R themes equals, gobs of money being hand over fist to the creators of it, which is good. I really like it.
Get more of it.
Yeah, exactly. I am looking forward to more. So I recommend it a lot, and that Jesus is going to. I genuinely wish you didn't have such a good recent pickup. I mean, Paul's part of this recent pickup and the immense, incredible Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. They are just barely enough to get me 5.5 tater tots on this week's episode. God, you were so close to winning. And another first, we've never had anybody get more than 5 tater tots.
And somehow Jake is the one who gets above 5 tater tots. Interesting.
I don't like the attitude that I don't like the attitude that you're giving me on this. I don't get to make the rules. I just adhere to them.
Is this FIFA? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's what exactly. But the conclusion of the recent pickup segment now means we are getting into
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
That is right, the Grail Tale segment. And this is going to be an extra special one because we have 2 Grail Tales that we collected at the Dallas Con. So we were on the floor going through comics with everybody else when we discovered individuals that had Grail Tales to tell us themselves. So I think that we can kind of dive in. Jesus, let's set them up, and then we'll just let the audio play, just so everybody knows. This audio is from a Comic-Con floor, so like there's background noise, there's people walking. We're trying to do our best to get the audio collected here. I think you're going to be able to hear the stories just fine, and it sort of is. The stories are pretty straightforward, but maybe meander a little bit. We'll see how it goes. But Jesus, this first one that we're going to set up here, this is the Duncanville one. This is Andy. So Duncanville Comics was one of the vendors at the event. And the
biggest vendor,
it really was the biggest vendor at the event. They had an incredible selection of books. They had an Avengers 4 signed by Stan Lee that I really wanted to snag, but just not in the price range right now that I want to afford. I will say that.
Yeah. And it was raw too. So you would have to take it to CBCS, which I know is your
if I wanted it slabbed. I would have to take the new
label, which you do want it slabbed. You want that Silver Age key slabbed, especially if it's signed by Stan Lee. But man, honestly, that was, I mean, a really good book. Duncanville Bookstore, I think it's called Duncanville Bookstore, is the biggest vendor there. They had the whole like half of a row. I mean, they have just keys upon keys upon keys. They have trades upon trades upon trades. They have, you know, $5 bins, $1 bins, $10 bins. They even have some variants and stuff like that too. So I mean, they just had a bunch of cool stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, they literally had an entire comic book store worth of comics at this
Pretty much.
at this con. I was thoroughly impressed. And we ended up talking to Andy, and it was funny because, as Jesus mentioned, the conversation really got started because Jesus was wearing the Astros hat. And we're not going to get into sports on this because I know it's hit or miss with our audience as far as if they understand or even, know. But the Astros and the Texas Rangers were playing this weekend, and we were in Dallas, which is where the Texas Rangers were, and the Houston Astros, where Jesus is from and huge fans of. These two the fan bases don't always see eye to eye, especially when they're playing each other in a 7-game series. And it had worked out that Andy was not too thrilled with Jesus walking in pretty tall, pretty proud, wearing his Astros hat. And I will say, what started out as it wasn't a confrontation. Like let's admit this first and foremost. Like he was giving you shit about the hat, but it was not like, it wasn't negative or aggressive. It was just like, why you got to wear the hat, man? And it was fun. The fun banter turned into comic book conversations, and we ended up getting one hell of a story out of Andy. Would you say that that's a good setup for this?
That's a perfect setup, man. Andy's a good dude. And I mentioned to him and I mentioned to you, I've been going to cons for over 10 years now. I've seen Duncanville at a lot of them. I've seen Andy at a lot of them. I didn't know him personally like I know him now, but I just knew he was, one of the owners or the owner. And I bought books from him. I bought a bunch of books from him. I remember buying some New 52 books from him. I bought some Green Lantern books from him, some keys. I bought some, I think I bought some trades as well from him. So, yeah, man, I mean, he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys. And like you said, it wasn't confrontational. I was just, playful competition and banter and giving each other the business, both giving and taking,
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, let's get to the Grail Tale.
So tell us about your grail tale.
When I was a kid, what started me out on comics was my grandmother would teach me how to read through comic books and the Sunday Funnies and stuff like this. So this is back in the 70s. And I always gravitated towards team books because you got more characters. So Justice League is my absolute favorite team. X-Men's right under that, but Justice League was always my favorite. And they would put out stuff, the indexes and things like that. And their first appearance was Brave and the Bold 28. And I guess it was about 15 years ago, I think I had done the full run, just about finished the full run of Justice League. But when you get into the Brave and the Bold, I mean, they're tough to find, the early Brave and the Bolds, and then they're just so expensive. And I had a buddy of mine that was a dealer at the time, and he got a low-grade Brave and the Bold, and he said, you've done so much for us and helped us out and everything else. He gave me the first appearance of the Justice League.
Wow.
And it's low-grade. I've since bought a better copy, but it's low-grade. But there's a handful of books that there's not enough money in the world for me to sell. And that low-grade Brave and the Bold, I literally, as, a 40-year-old man, 30 or 40-year-old man, was shaking because I was an 8-year-old kid all over again. This is a book that I'd known about for, 30 years, and I finally got it, and it's there's in my office, that one's sitting there with, I got 4 or 5, like my original first comic book was Spider-Man 135. My dad bought me at a drugstore.
Yeah.
It's sitting there, the Brave and the Bold 28, and a couple others. I mean, I literally, if the house caught on fire, I'd grab those handful of comics and walk out the door. So.
Well, that's awesome. And I think the fact that he knew that was yours. And
he had heard the story. He had heard the story about the story. He'd heard the story about my love for Justice League and whatever. And he had bought a collection. Like I said, bought a collection. There was a low grade one in there, and he refused to take money. And I mean, to this day, David and I are still friends.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great grail tale.
Dude, you just kicked us off with the best grail tale I've heard in months.
Yeah.
It's like I said, that's even though you own the store and there's more expensive books that we've owned and everything else, I still probably about once a year I go to those books that are up on those shelves and I pull them out and I read them. I refuse to get them graded or anything else because I want to read them. I want to be that kid from back in the day that I never thought I would ever own that book, and now I own a couple of copies, but that first one, there's nothing like getting that first one, that first copy.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Yeah, I'm still searching for mine, obviously, but let them know this is Duncanville Comics. So if you guys have any comic needs, you guys can go to Duncanville Comics. You guys have an online presence as well.
Yeah, we're all over eBay. We're all over. We've got a website, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. It's Duncanville Bookstore. The store's brick and mortar store just south of Dallas, Texas, and 7 days a week and online 24/7.
And this is obviously a con grail tale. There's another grail tale here where he bought the bookstore that he would go into, the LCS that he would go into. And we're going to get that later, though. So just want to let you guys know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
So there you have it, Andy's Grail Tale. I want to start by saying, Andy, thank you. If you're out there listening, Andy, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. You were actually the first Grail Tale that we got at the con, and we were super excited to start that conversation with you and to get that from you. Thank you very, very much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Now you're listening to my voice. Jesus doing what the Astros had, and congratulations on your team. So there, it's out of the way, gentleman's thing. Okay. However, the Grail Tale, that one was dope, man. Like, that's the first one we got. Andy's a guy that I saw in his eyes light up when he's talking about it. There's another one that he has that hopefully maybe in the future we might be able to do something different and record it in a con or something. And I won't spoil it, but this one was just as good as that one. Like, this one was talking about Brave and the Bold number 28, the first appearance of Justice League, first appearance of Starro, but then getting it gifted, right? Because people know, like, your friends that are in the community, that are in the industry, that have access to some of these books, getting a gift, even though it was a low grade. He mentioned it was low grade, even though it was low grade. Getting it gifted to you from somebody that's a huge grail. And we all know what a huge grail Brave and the Bold 28 is.
It's not a small book.
And it got gifted to him, man.
Yeah.
It got gifted to him. So, I mean, what an awesome grail tale, man. I was really, really excited that we were able to get that in person at the show. It'll go down for us in history as, the first one at the show, the first time we're there, and such a really cool grail tale, man. So thank you, Andy, for sharing that with us and allowing us to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, to me, that is, Andy with his history with the bookstore, with his history with comics, and years and years and years of collecting and just being in the comic community, right? Andy was talking to us about all the shows that he goes to all the time. And if you ask me, that's just like that kind of lifestyle. Like, this Grail Tale makes so much sense, but it also really, validates like this camaraderie amongst the collecting community, right? Like, this idea that we are in this community to share what we love about comics, all comics being different or whatever, and everybody has their favorite characters or their favorite stories. But the thing is we're all getting together and talking about, we're going to our LCSs every week, talking to people about the books, right? Talking about our favorite runs, our favorite writers, things like that. And I think it breeds generosity like this and stories like this. And that's what makes it a Grail Tale. So thank you very much, Andy, for sharing that with us. Like Jesus said, it will forever go down as our first in-person collected Grail Tale. So thank you.
Yeah, pretty dope. Pretty dope.
Next, though, and not to be understated, is potentially the most energetic, interesting human being we met at this con. And I say that Like very, very excited. It was funny because we did not run into Dean, or should I say Captain Comic, the first day. In fact, I ran into Dean at the end of day 2. How on earth we missed Dean, I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know how it took us to the end of day 2 to meet him. Yeah.
I saw him. I don't know if it was day 1 or early in day 2, but I thought he was like, I saw him roaming around. So I thought he was a cosplayer. And literally, man, in my mind, I was like, oh man, that's a manga I haven't read yet.
So first of all, we are going to share a video on we're going to share it on socials. We're sharing it everywhere. We did with Dean, who I guess he was a cosplayer, I guess, right? Or he is Captain Comic. I'm not entirely sure. Are you cosplaying if you are Captain Comic? I don't know. And
the world may never know.
Yeah, the world may never know. However, Dean, who is from Captain Comics comic collection, yes, the alliteration and redundancy is all on purpose. Dean of Captain Comics comic collection was at the Dallas show. He was a vendor. He was selling comics and collectibles and things like that. But he was a cosplayer. He was dressed up as Captain Comic, which is a character of his own creation. And it was, as I told him, it was cool. He was the only vendor I know that was actually dressed up. I mean, everybody was wearing clothes, but he was the only vendor I know dressed up as a superhero or something. Like Jesus said, it's possible I saw him earlier and assumed that he was just one of the individuals there, doing cosplay. But that said, Dean was enthusiastic. He was energetic. Dean brings a lot to the table. You guys are going to get a taste of that in this Grail Tale that he was generous enough to give us at the show. Really, in the last 15 minutes of the show, right? Like it was towards the end. I was actually worried we weren't going to get it in time because I had talked to him and then I said, I got to find Jesus. Where the hell is Jesus? I don't know why we were split up, but we were in 2 different parts of this space. And I found you. I was like, you have to come. You have to see something or somebody.
During the recording, man, if I remember correctly, the PA was going off saying, you ain't got to go home.
You can't say
gotta get the hell out of here.
I'll tell you what, Dean provided in the last 15 minutes of this con, probably, a very large percentage of the total laughter. And we had a good time on this con, but I tell you what, but without further ado, we need to get to Dean's Grail Tale here.
What's going on, spectators? This is Jake and Jesus from Dallas FanFest.
On site.
We're here with Dean.
Hey.
Hey, Dean. Dean is from Captain Comics Collection.
Collection.
Excuse me, Captain Comics Comic Collection.
Yeah, I love redundancy. I always found it funny, so I had to do that. Captain Comics Comic Collection.
Love it.
Thank you, sir.
So, Dean, we already told you what we're here for. We are here for Grail Tales.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned that you have a Grail Tale.
I do, indeed. I have a couple Grail Tales, but my favorite is one that happened relatively recently. So on top of selling comics as Captain Comic, part of Captain Comics Comic Collection, I also part-time play in a Beatles band as Ringo. We call ourselves Abbey Road Trip. We are a DFW-based Beatles band. And our buddy Ben, he does our sound, and he's a wizard. He fixes arcade machines, he wheels and deals, and he also does all our sound. Well, I mentioned one day that I love collecting comics and I love collecting Beatles stuff, that it ends up that one of the rarer comics out there is a Beatles comic, believe it or not. The movie Yellow Submarine, the cartoon, the trippy drug trip cartoon, had a comic book adaptation that was actually based off of the original screenplay, so there is some things that are in the comic that were not in the movie, and it just so happens to be a pretty rare comic. I tell him that in passing.
2 weeks go by. I go back to practice. I sit down to play the drums, and he's like, "Oh, I got you something." Hands me a parcel. I open it up. It's the Yellow Submarine comic.
No way.
Which was a white whale for me, a literal grail. I thought I would never get my hands on it, and there it was in my hands, decent condition to boot. He was like, I found a deal on eBay, and I almost screamed. I was so happy, and so now that is probably the prized possession in my collection.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you told us this because I was expecting something else. Like, you're right, but what?
I'm a multifaceted man, but I got other tales too. But for another time.
Yeah, I know. No, no, that's awesome, man.
No, leave all this in. Don't edit any of this. This is gold.
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I keep getting messed up, but so how, like, what else? How does the cover look? 'Cause I don't.
The cover is actually it's very like gold. I think it is actual gold key. So it's a very like plain old cover, but like the background is just squares. Like there's nothing behind them really, but it's the four Beatles in cartoon form and the little Jeremy Hillary boob guy, the little gremlin kind of thing, just all on the cover. And like I said, there's stuff in the comic that's not in the book. Like for instance, in the comic, they meet Lovely Rita, which is a Beatles song, but it wasn't in the movie. So that was a cool thing to do. Yeah, the Sgt. Pepper. Yeah, exactly. Because in the movie, they take over as Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And again, Yellow Submarine is one of my all-time favorite movies. So to have that comic book, as rare as it is, and in decent condition, was a dream come true.
That's pretty dope, man. That's pretty awesome.
And where is this comic right now?
This comic should be above the mantle in a frame, but it's just in a safe little stack.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
I've got
It is
those
safe.
too. But it'll have a place above the mantle at some point.
It might be where people enter the home whenever I move out.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing with us. And for all of you listening out there, I know this is an audio medium and you cannot see what Dean is wearing, but you can go and find Dean on every social media.
That's
Tell
correct.
him where you're at.
Okay, so that's Captain Comics Comic Collection on Instagram and Facebook, same name. But I also have the TikTok. It's _Deanomite, DEANOMITE. For my actual name, because it didn't start as a Captain Comic TikTok, but now it kind of is, because every Wednesday I do a video on New Comic Book Day, what's coming out that week, showcasing both Marvel and DC and everything in between. I'm on week 42. I don't know when this will come out, but I just finished week 42, and so I got 10 more to go.
That's amazing.
Nice. That's awesome.
And yeah, you got to see what he's dressed. He is dressed as a superhero.
That's right. The greatest hero that ever lived, Captain Comic, the spirit of comics. I was there in 38, I was there in 45, I was there at 61, 62, and 63. 64, I was sleepy. Anyway, Captain Comic, at your service.
And if that is not endearing enough, I don't know what is. So go check him out.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Dean. So, Dean is so, like I said at the end there, he is incredibly endearing. Like he is incredibly likable, enjoyable. He was a pleasure to be around. I wish we had met him sooner at the con, but I'm so happy that we met him at some point because he really made that con, he made it special in his own way, right? Like Captain Comics, I can't imagine coming home not having known about this individual.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I thought he was just cosplaying, but he loves comic books. He has his own, little comic booth, and he was selling comics, and he had an awesome banner as well too, with a lot of different Captain Comic artwork on there that he got either commissioned or gifted from friends that are artists, which is pretty cool. But man, the other part of that is, the guy is really a Beatles, fan and collector. And that book that he's talking about, if you look him up, it's actually the one that Beatles collectors want the most because it's rare. And it also came with a poster. So some of these are not going to have the poster.
Oh, wow.
And if it doesn't have the poster, then you know that it's not worth as much. And so usually people who buy Beatles stuff, they want posters, especially this came out in 1969.
Oh, yeah.
1969, it's Gold Key, but it's actually Western Publishing that published it. It is adapted from the film of the same name, and it includes the pinup. So, I mean, look at the cover. I mean, he described the cover, pretty much how it is.
Yeah.
Submarine on it. They're in cartoon form. The little gremlin guy, squares in the background with different colors. Very, very 60s.
Yeah, very. By the way, did you know about this book before he described it?
No, and let me tell you why. Because it really is not. The first time they came out in a comic book format is in 1964 in a book called My Little Margie, 12-cent cover, and they came out as themselves, right here.
Oh,
very very Archie-like artwork.
Yes, yeah, like very.
And even then, though, that book matches the roughly cost of the one that he's talking about, and they come out in other things too, like Archie in 1965. Metalman in DC in 1965, Marvel 1965, and Strange Tales number 130. So they've come out in a bunch of different stuff, but that book there, the tie-in with the movie, the poster, the artwork in 1969 is probably one that's more coveted, and that's why the value on it is higher.
Well, and the association with the Yellow Submarine movie, and yep. Well, and it's such a catchy song, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say, Dean, thank you so much for the Grail Tale. Thank you very much for the entertainment. And as he said in there, you can find him Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So certainly the entertainment value alone is worth the follow, everybody. But
he does reviews of comic books on Wednesdays too. You guys are into that stuff.
Yes, exactly. So that is going to do it for the Grail Tales, 2 live Grail Tales, and both kind of certainly touching on the community, right? Like the community aspect of comics, but also like collected in a way where we were live in person, and it was just, nerdtastic. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, man. And I think it's going to push us, or at least it's pushed me to want to do more in person. So we're going to kind of figure that part out too.
Yep. We're going to have to figure out a way to start doing Grail Tales live all day, all Grail Tales. Something like that, right?
Especially like that.
Call in, caller number 9. We'll do the whole bit. But that brings us to our final segment of the show. Speculation. That's right, the speculation segment, where we're going to talk about a comic or collectible that we feel like might be worth your time / money, and could potentially help the hobby pay for itself. Jesus, what do you have this week?
All right, man. So I want to go over this series of books that I didn't even know was out there. Pretty excited about it, and I want to talk about some of the best comic book movies out there, because a lot of that comic book movies either coming up or that have come out kind of drive some of the speculation market. Not so much lately, just because we're kind of in the bubble from 21 and all that stuff, but overall, like, there's still books that are collectible that could go up in price, especially if you like these books and the nostalgia factor of it. And this one's already hitting me in the nostalgia. And one of the best comic book movies, in my opinion, is from 2004, and it's an animated movie, and it's called The Incredibles. So anytime The Incredibles is on, or anytime my kids have it on, or whatever, we talk about it, we watch it, and we want to watch the whole thing. And it still holds up pretty well, man, because those themes are kind of, still relevant in some ways, and the art of it, or the what is it called, like just the animation of it was pretty ahead of its time, and it still holds up because it's a lot of fun, right?
It's Pixar, right?
Pixar, right? Well, in the same year, in 2004, the first appearance of The Incredibles in comic book form was in Incredibles number 1 through 4, an adaptation of the movie for Dark Horse.
Oh.
So the artist is Ricardo Smith, and the writer, I just know the last name is Alden. So a couple things with this series, right? Number one is obviously going to be the first appearances of a lot of those people. You know, the Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, Dash, you know, every Frozone, the whole nine, right? But I mean, I still want to get all 4 because I want to read them and the adaptation and what have you. Second thing is, they're hard to find. Not only are they hard to find, they're hard to find in high grade. And there's not a lot on the census. So there's not a lot of books that were sent in to get graded. So people are sleeping on The Incredibles. I can just tell you right now. 2004 is a big year for me. When I graduated high school, just a bunch of stuff happened for me in 04, right? So for me, it's what, 16, 19 years later, almost 20 years later, this book is going to go up in value for people like me, right? And even younger people like my kids who enjoy The Incredibles. I mean, I obviously saw it much later, but they love The Incredibles. They love The Incredibles too. Even my younger boys are getting into The Incredibles as well. So it has legs. And not a lot made. Dark Horse, like right now when people say Star Wars Dark Horse, people's eyes light up because those are the ones that people want. The early years of Star Wars. And that's usually what happens. Dark Horse, you know, licenses out the stuff first. They're ahead of the game. Same thing with Incredibles. And it's rare, not a lot out there, not a lot in great condition. So if you find in good condition, hold on to it. Hold on to it. Maybe press clean it, send it in. Maybe you're sitting on something. Maybe you're sitting on something for yourself, right? For you to keep because it's so hard to find. Or maybe you're sitting on something that you can maybe, you know, sell in the future to help you get a bigger grail or something. But to me, The Incredibles right now, super undervalued, super hard to find in high grade. What else do you want with it? That's my speculation.
Very nice. And I completely agree with that. I'm interested that Dark Horse is the publisher on that. And I know that they were, I guess, doing a lot of Disney stuff, I suppose. But the other thing that sort of makes it interesting for me that you chose a Dark Horse is I also chose a Dark Horse speculation, which is certainly a product of our previous guests and certainly a product of something I've been reading through. I've been reading through Hellboy. And something we saw at the con really made me go, that actually I hadn't really, I don't know. I don't know if it's a speculation thing that I instantly am like, why does this feel underappreciated? Now, Hellboy's first appearance is muddled to say the least. Right, so there's some prototype illustrations. There's a lot of previews.
The convention one is the one that everybody wants.
Yeah, now and so that would be, are you referring to the Comics Buyer's Guide or which one? The one with the prototype on the cover. Oh, San Diego Comic-Con Comics #2.
Something like that, man.
So, like I said, it's definitely muddled here. So there's a prototype Hellboy in Dime Press #4, where Hellboy is effectively on the cover, or a version of Hellboy, anyway, and it looks close. Like it does look very close to Hellboy, just not red, right? And there's only 2,000 estimated copies of it. It was published in 1993, Dime Press #4. And I think that there's reason why, because he's on the cover and it's a prototype, people would like that one. I guess you could say San Diego Comic-Con Comics #2 is the first appearance of Hellboy in black and white. It's a 4-page story. And now the thing is this one, the cover is, I mean, good. And it's first in black and white. Like, again, it's another one of those muddled kind of things. If you want, a good cover appearance, you want, first in color story, first appearance of Hellboy in color, is Next Men number 21. Hellboy is red on the cover, everything you would want in a Hellboy book. Dark Horse, like I said, it's John Byrne's Next Men number 21, came out in 1993. It's a relatively affordable book. I mean, this I guess you can. I mean, there are bids there. You can go. I mean, you can get this online. You can get this in a lot of places. And it was available at the con.
Yeah, and that cover is hard to find in high grade as well because it's a black cover.
It is a black cover. Yeah, and so I it's you can get this book for under $100. Under $100. 30 years old. And a fairly beloved character. I mean, there are people that swear by Hellboy, and I'm starting to become one of them. I really enjoy the books. Yeah, I'm really enjoying reading it.
Well, my first introduction to Hellboy was the movies, right? I didn't know too much about Hellboy until I saw the movies, and I love those movies, man. Those movies are my jam. So and guess who has a Next Men at grading right now?
You?
Yes, me. Yes, I don't know how long it was going to take you, but yes, me. It's a 9.8 candidate, man, and I'm hoping I get that back 9.8. Yeah, and that's one that I'm going to keep. I got that in that collection recently, and I was just like, man, this thing is near flawless. But yeah, get that book. Like Jake said, it's only bound to go up, man. 30 years.
30 years, and to me, that is a character that's going to stand the test of time. Not just because of the movies. It's a good character. I feel like with so much versatility, Hellboy's not going anywhere, not going out of style anytime soon.
For sure, and hopefully they reboot it again, even though they just did with what's his name, David Harbour.
Yep.
I hope they do it again, and they he's just a fun character, man. He's just a fun character. I really enjoy him. And I really enjoy seeing on the big screen.
Yeah, I completely agree. But so that's my speculation, and that is going to do it for that segment in this episode of Spec Tales. It was a whirlwind of a week. The last week, the con was great. The people were amazing that we met. We tried to post all of our photos and videos and things that we got while we were at the con. We're still dumping a little bit here and there, but for the most part, that should all be online. If we met you and didn't call you out specifically, we did do specifically kind of a Saturday night after the second day of the con, before I had to leave the next morning. Jesus and I did record a Patreon exclusive full hour of our instant reaction to the show. We put that on our for Patreon patrons only. You can go over to Patreon /SpecTales, or just search SpecTales on Patreon if you want to learn more about how to support the show and get some exclusive content in that extra hour, specifically for our reaction to the con. Seriously, I mean, we were exhausted, and we literally just knee-jerk reaction to everything that we did at the con, and I even detail my specific meeting with I guess grail celebrity meeting that I had, which was fun. I got to take a photo with somebody very special to me. But you know what, Jesus, I'm going to leave that as a Patreon exclusive kind of a conversation. I don't want to give too many details.
For sure, it's a little teaser too.
Yeah, that's what we call a tease in the biz. So that's that though. Hell of a week though. Hell of a week.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, everybody who saw us at the con, and thanks to all you listeners out there. And if you're new to the show, please keep coming back. We are going to be back next week with another amazing episode of Spec Tales. Until then, have a good week.